to sort of have stimulative can be indicators of a young person going through some level of anxiety and worry, but not necessarily knowing how to, to communicate that to family, parents, or caregivers, and it presents itself in that way. So those are some of the ways. Those are not limited to, but those are some of the ways in which anxiety and worry can manifest and present itself in adults, children, and the older children. Within the context of the pandemic that we're in at the moment, I think, like I said, it's really goes in mind because as parents, as caregivers, not only thinking about yourself, but you sort of maintain and look after the well-being of your home as well, to be mindful of and to kind of look at the triggers and be able to start conversations and ask questions that are not judgmental, but to kind of you're curious about what's going on for them. So if you pick up on something that's slight, actually explore and have a conversation and be open to hearing that child or young person and explore and just try to understand what's going on for them and with them, because it will give you some better understanding and also it will put you in better stead to be able to deal with things and help them through what we're currently going through as well. So in terms of having talked about how worry and anxiety can manifest, I would like to speak to you about practical tips to improve your mental health and well-being, because I think overall that's where we all want to be. We want to have a toolkit that we can use, not just one thing, but a variety of things that we can use at a variety of different times that can help us to manage the difficult situations that we're in. For me, in terms of well-being and balance, is to acknowledge the situation, but then be able to manage it within ourselves. And the first tip that I would say is to be able to control from what's not in your control. That's absolutely key, because if we try to work on things that are outside of our control, it's absolutely counterintuitive and it's going to have an even compounded impact on our well-being and mental health. So for young children, for children and young people in the context of a pandemic, I think as parents and caregivers, it's really, really important that we have honest conversations with them about COVID-19. So giving them the facts, age appropriate is the key here, what they need to know. And the reason that we encourage this, and there's a guidance that I've shared that we will make available via link, psychological guidance, is that to stop young people and children being fed by information elsewhere. So one of the things that you can control as a parent in terms of, and this will impact on your well-being as well, is controlling the information and actually sharing what's right and accurate with your children in an age-appropriate way and having an honest conversation with them about that. Now, for yourself as an adult, you want to, are things like adhering to governmental guidance, maintaining social distancing, washing your hands. Out with of that, it's really difficult. You can't. So to try and do so, or to catastrophize based on somebody else's behaviour, is really, really unhelpful. What you can focus on is actually what Joe Bloggs is doing. I can't control. If you're out getting shopping essentials and somebody's coming towards you and not maintaining social distance, rather than freaking out, what you can do, because what you have control over, is to then take the subsequent steps that need to maintain. What you've done in that situation is you've taken control, you've taken charge of what you're able to, and that helps you to regulate, rather than thinking Joe Bloggs that's coming towards me is going to pass this on to me, and sort of catastrophizing the situation in that way. So that's number one. Given that a majority of us are working from home, and obviously with young people, schools being shut for non-work is super important. Number two is to set a routine. Most of the nation are expected to stay at home at the moment, so it's absolutely important family. There's rushing through your lungs, whether it's that you're actually going to do some physical exercise in the morning. Lots of resources out there at the moment. Free language courses, challenge yourself to do things that you haven't done before that will actually get your mind and your brain thinking. Because um, what that then does is it gives you something to focus on, other than your normal routine, other than your psychologically and mentally. And so doing something like that, I would say, in terms of physical activity, doing at least 30 minutes physically, but also mentally, and with the physical. Feel well, and it's only going to have a negative impact on you and the family too. The family will pick up on it. So part of challenging your present is to notice sight, engaging your senses essentially. Notice sight, sound, taste, and other sensory experience at moments, and name them. So active yourself about what you can hear, what birds can you hear from them, what taste can you taste, smell from yourself, and engaging in mindfulness activities which is help useful ways to do that. Mindfulness activities and progressive muscle relaxation activities, which really help you to kind of pull things in from the outside back into yourself, become more grounded, and become more in tune with what's going on with you and in your immediate surroundings. Great time. But practice gratitude. So at times of uncertainty, developing a gratitude practice is a really good way to help connect you with moments of joy and pleasure. And when you think about sort of feelings and positive psychology, this is also a way in which individuals are encouraged to kind of work at rather than thinking about all the things that's going wrong, but things can be focused and refocus on some of the things that's going right. So I would encourage you to about the things that you're grateful for. Um, Creating a gratitude jar, which is something that a family can do. So writing in there what you're grateful for on a daily basis and encouraging the families to get to be involved in what that does is that's also a skill and a strategy that you're encouraging the and by the end of the quarantine, you won't have a jar full of lots of things that you're grateful for because actually, even though we're all in lockdown at the moment, there's still lots of great things that's going on with us. Um, and if you can't do a gratitude jar, then maybe start a gratitude journal as an adult, that's something that you could do and scribe in something that you could also do that with your spouse and scribe in there. And to be able to at the end of this journey, when you come out the other side of this, to be able to look at it and see, actually, there's been lots and lots of great things that have happened. And it really focuses you as well. It's really, really difficult to try and think about future capacities whilst presently thinking about things you're grateful for. So it interrupts that train of thought in terms of negativity as well. And one of the ones that I would also encourage, number 5, is about noticing your limits to worry. So this is about discipline. Um, in a situation like this, with the with the health situation and the pandemic, there's constant information being chucked at us, whether it be by social media. We as adults really need to gatekeep what's coming into timeline. And basically, in the field of psychology, what we're doing is we're tracking it. So for some people, they know that after watching 15 minutes news, their heart rate starts to increase because after 15 minutes, everything, they can't take anymore. At that point, at 14 minutes, turn it off, limit yourself to only 14 minutes to use a day. Help yourself track what your triggers are and eliminate them. So if you know that going on social media is something that elevates your worry and elevates your anxiety, then limit it and be really disciplined about that. And when you remove that, replace your strategy so you're not just left sort of twiddling your thumbs, twiddling your fingers, feeling like you've got nothing to do. If you remove a trigger, I encourage you to replace it with one of the other strategies that we've talked about so that the space is still filled, but it's filled in a positive way and in a way that you can. Um, as the children as well, when we talk about you speaking with think it come up with a plan together of how that could be removed, how that could be reduced, how that could be used. It might be that actually it's something that you do that triggers your child. It might be something, a response that you have. So by being aware of that and having a conversation, you can change your behaviour, the things that trigger your child, or you can be more mindful of it and really just kind of reframe how you respond and behave in the presence of your child, so that it doesn't trigger them more. But a conversation is really tough. And also um, staying connected and reaching out for more support. So I know we're isolated, but I want to just kind of say, for me, we're physically isolated. We're not emotionally, we shouldn't be emotionally isolated. We shouldn't be psychologically isolated. We shouldn't be mentally isolated. There are still ways in which we can maintain that human connection. This forum and this opportunity being one of them. So restricted and limited to being indoors doesn't mean that we cannot continue to develop and build on the relationships that we have. So I really encourage us to actively and be intentional about those. And I think for me, within my field and having to adapt the way in which we work, video conferencing is something that has become such a big deal now and enables you to still have that connection. Yes, it's not physical, but have that connection, schedule it in so that people know and that it's something you can look for. So whether it's that you're scheduling in a video conference with a friend that you normally would see regularly, then make that a video conference call that you have with them at the same time that you would have seen them when there was no COVID-19. And then it becomes regular and it becomes part of your routine as well. Talking to friends, talking to the church community, talking to family about things you feel particularly anxious about, that can be really helpful because when you talk it through, we start to realize actually some of the things that cause us fear and anxiety, and if we're able to have conversations about them, then those can be unpicked and they can be rationalized a bit and hopefully reduce the anxiety that we feel. And lastly, I just want to say at this time, it's really, really important that we remember to be kind to ourselves and to not beat ourselves up because we feel a certain way. We're not robots, and naturally, our emotions will be elevated and deplete at times, but we need to be kind to ourselves. We are looking after our family, and you need to ensure that you have a bandwidth to be is really tasking anyway. And if you've got depleted resources, then caring for others is going to be really, really difficult. And like I said, as adults, um, your mental health and impacts on your surrounding, it impacts on your household, it impacts on your family. So one of the key things is you need to be good for your young to be good, for your family to be good. Um, so be really compassionate with yourself and reach out for help because like Queen said, no man is designed to be quarantined or isolated, but that's only physically. Make those emotional connections and don't feel like you can do it all by yourself. My tips and strategies, which is kind of practical ways in which to sort of help to maintain a healthy balance of mental health and well-being. I would say that if it got to the point whereby you felt debilitated, felt that you just couldn't function, I would be advising and encouraging to seek professional. But that's if it gets to a point where it's hitting a clinical threshold and you cannot function any longer in regards to the context and the anxiety that we're feeling with regards to COVID-19. Some of these strategies in terms of reducing that and still helping you to maintain a healthy balance to life. One of the things that I talked about was around sort of mindfulness and progressive muscle relaxation. So I'm just going to give you a quick taster of what that looks like, and I've left some resources that will be available also, but I'm also open to having conversations about it in the future. I practice it a lot with other people. So just for the sake of kind of the quick read and taster, I'm just going to ask you where you are to sit comfortably um, and close your eyes if possible, please. So this calming breathing technique is for stress, anxiety, and panic. It only takes and can be done anywhere. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to try and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in gently and, and as you breathe, two, four, around, squeeze it until you can feel the tension. Breathing in, two, three, four, five, and breathing out Release and unsqueeze and let the tension flow out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep breathing in. 2, 3. Releasing the tension. Like I said, there's some materials for that, but I'm also I'm available to have conversations and to even practice with you if you need. Thank you very much.
Well done, girl. Oh, no, thank you. Let me go. I have a question, and I'm sure for those of you who are listening and watching, if you have a question, please feel free to ask, and Pastor Mora will moderate that. You did say something here. You mentioned that what we do can trigger as a parent. I have two questions. First question is how stop myself behaving or responding to in such a way that I can my child? How can I stop myself? How do I even know? Because I know that most parents don't want to hurt their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how will a parent know that what this reaction right now is affecting will affect my child, and how can they stop themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And the second question will be, if I know that I have triggered anxiety in my child, how do I help that child?
Okay, thank you so much. Those are really, really good questions. And one of the things that I would say is that we really encourage open conversations with children and young people in the home. So it just takes adaptability to be able to do that. So conversation 4-year-old is different to how you have a conversation with a 14-year-old. So I think in this kind of context, when we talk, this is a really, one of the benefits of this time is to sort of have conversations with children and young people about how they're feeling about what's going on, what their understanding is, education and as parents and caregivers. But we want to know what the lived experience of that child is. Having a conversation and asking a young person and asking a child, are there things, be really open and be ready for feedback. Are there things that mummy and daddy does that makes you worry? Rather than chastise them for saying that, and asking them to break it down. So a really good way I've encouraged parents to do that is to do like storyboards with young people. So that's like a situation and saying how they felt about it, and then in the book, you're part of a situation, how they felt